Hey, welcome to Romance Happy Hour. I'm Dylann Crush, and I am here with my co-hostess, Dawn Ludicky, over there.
Yeah.
And we have two great guests tonight. We've got Sabrina Blackburry down in the corner there, and Michelle Major. So, welcome, ladies. We're super excited that you're here with us tonight.
Yeah, I'm
Thanks for
excited to be
having
here.
us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And hi, Deanna. We see you. Deanna is always like ready to go. I was just telling him we saw you pop on there already, Deanna, and I was telling him that Deanna's always ready and waiting. I love it.
Yeah.
So, and Dawn,
Yes.
you made it.
I did make it.
You messaged me earlier that you were a little busy this afternoon.
Yeah.
I weren't sure if you'd be here when we went live. So
Yeah. Tied up in the mountains. I know.
tied up in the mountains. That could
Yeah.
be a romance novel, you know.
That could be, yes.
I want to clarify.
Yeah, no, I wasn't really tied up. I mean, yeah. Thank goodness. I mean, that's kind of actually more of a horror story, I would think, than a romance. I mean, it could be a romance novel.
It
Mountain
depends
Man.
on if it's like Chris Hemsworth tying you up, then
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Mountain Man, it could be a good Mountain Man romance tied up with by the Mountain Man. I don't know. Anyways, for you Mountain Men authors, Dylan and Casey,
Yes,
right?
Yep, Casey's fun too. Yeah, Casey and I both. It's like when you say you were tied up in the mountains, we're both like,
You're just like,
"Ooh."
yeah. No, I was actually chasing deer, so I was going on. I think I hiked 5 miles today in steep terrain with a bum knee, chasing deer, and I didn't get anything. So yeah, I was like worried that I would, and then I'd be processing it, and Dylan's like, "Where's Dawn?" And then I'm like, "Oh crap, I didn't have the cell phone service to text Dylan and say, oops, sorry."
It's all right.
So
I'm kind of, like Team Bambi, so I'm,
yeah,
secretly a little glad that you didn't get anything.
I know. Yeah, I know there's a lot of Team Bambis out there.
Yes.
But here it's just how we eat for the year. So
Yes. Well, and I
so
think
yeah.
if it's not just for fun, but we
No.
don't have to talk about hunting. I know we
Nope,
don't want to
sorry.
be yeah.
Yep.
So, what else have you been working on besides hiking around?
Yeah, so I have a release on the
Here?
7th, and so I am desperately trying to get that uploaded in between, I guess, being tied up in the mountains. And so yeah, waiting for the last edits from my editor, and then getting that published, and then real estate, how that is.
I thought you were out of real estate. You were wrapping up.
No. Yeah, and then it started fast forwarding, so I can't get out of it. It's like a cult. Once you get in, you can't get out. But yeah, no. Yeah, I'm not gonna. But yeah. What about you, Dylan? What are you up to? Besides going to your cabin for writing sprints.
Yes, so we'll be closing down the cabin soon. So I made one last trek up here for a little writing retreat. So I'm taking advantage of that. And then I've been busy. I spent last week, I finally got all of our Mountain Men and Mustang Mountain Kickstarter shipments. I got everything out. So super excited about that because I mean that took over my whole house for a couple of weeks there. And then have been writing. So yeah, I've got the next book of my Whiskey War series is coming out next month, and then Casey and I have been talking a lot about what is happening with our Mountain Men of Mustang Mountain, and actually what's happening in Mustang Mountain. So because there is a plan. There is a plan for next year. So
Okay.
yeah, I see Jennifer said she got her Kickstarter. You are so welcome. I owe you a t-shirt though. And I got to tell you, Jennifer, they sent me the wrong size and I reordered and I got it yesterday and I was so excited to be able to turn it around to you. And instead of sending me the right size t-shirt, they sent me a quarter zip men's polo. So I talked to them today and I will have your t-shirt for you on Monday. But yeah, it was just.
Is it a new distributor or your same distributor?
No, it's the same one, and they've always been on it, which was so weird. Yeah, because they sent me the wrong size shirt, and then this time they sent me It's not even a shirt. I open it up and it's like this like super heavyweight men's quarter zip, like really nice, kind of long sleeve thing, but not a t-shirt.
Interesting. I would be curious to see how the print looks on a quarter zip.
Yeah, me too. So anyway, so yeah, it just seems like we just had lots of little things like that kept going wrong. I don't know, Michelle or Sabrina, if you have done a Kickstarter project yet, or anything like that requires fulfillment. But yeah, pretty much everything that could have hiccuped on this project did. So
I've never tried it. I'm too intimidated, I think. I would like to someday.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't either. It sounds, even with the hiccups, it sounds very cool when you talk about it, but it is intimidating.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it was a lot of fun. Our series is set in Montana, and so so this box we did a lot of things from our mercantile, our Nelson's Mercantile, which is like the general store in our fictional town, and so there were a lot of huckleberry items because huckleberries are big
in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
Very big in Montana.
So yes, lots of huckleberries.
Fun fact, I tried to sell a property the other day because it had a huckleberry patch on the property.
Ooh.
So I had a client and I'm like, you want this one? It's got a huckleberry patch. Trust me. You're from out of state. You know this. You don't know this, but this is what you want. It didn't work, but I want to buy it.
I think it would have worked
for the
on
huckleberry
me.
patch. For the huckleberry patch.
Yep.
So
I would like that. So yeah, so just writing. Lots of writing.
Yes.
Lots of writing now that my big mailing push was done. But tonight we have got two awesome authors. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Michelle, why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you write and all that good stuff?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here along with Sabrina. I am Michelle Major, and I write primarily small town, sweet to medium heat romance. My current series is The Carolina Girls. The newest book in it came out this week, The Christmas Cabin. So available wherever books are sold. And it is set in the fictional town of Magnolia, North Carolina. It's the 6th book in the series and the 9th book overall, set in Magnolia. The Carolina Girls is a spin-off series, and this focuses on two sisters who come back to the kind of dilapidated now summer camp that they frequented one of them loved, one of them didn't, as kids, and it's going to be sold and developed. And so the black sheep in the family decides that she's going to save it because she wants to bring her daughter back and show her the magic of Christmas in small towns. And who would be developing the property but her ex-husband, who she left behind. So yes, lots of
so is this a second chance then?
It is a second chance, and a little bit enemies to lovers, because they had a real bad, like, it was kind of a whirlwind wedding right out of high school, and then a real bad breakup where she kind of ditched him. So she's got some stuff to atone for.
So how did you choose Carolina? Have you been there? Do you love it? And also Magnolia, because I love magnolias. That's my favorite flower.
I love magnolias too, and I chose it because I live in Colorado now, and my computer is bouncing because my puppy is underneath my feet. I live in Colorado now, but I grew up in Ohio, and we vacationed every year to the Outer Banks. It was just like our thing. And, at that time it was the vacation where you we had the wood paneled minivan, and my sister, who's 11 years younger, we had her potty seat in the back that, she would just we weren't stopping until we got there. It was just go. But I loved that area. And when I started this series, I'd come off a series of 11 books set in Colorado, and I just wanted to break it up. I love the mountains. I live here. I'm not moving, but I was like, oh, I want something different. And there's not much different than the beach. So that's why I went there. Yeah.
Nice.
So are they by the Outer Banks? Is your fictional town kind of on the Outer? Okay.
Yeah. So it's in that sort of northern North Carolina, kind of near Virginia area. So, and they're connected, but they're also standalone. You don't have to read, you might hear, characters from previous books might make an appearance, but not in any way that a new reader wouldn't be able to understand.
That was Jennifer's question. Wanted to know, can the book be read as a standalone? So you answered that.
That's always important to me too, as a reader, is, if you're coming in mid-series, you want to make sure you can catch up.
Yep. Well, and your cover is absolutely adorable. It makes me want to, just crawl right on into that book with the holidays coming and it's starting to get colder outside. And it looks very cozy.
Yeah, you got snow yet? Both Michelle and Sabrina, did we ask where you're from? Do we know?
No, so I'm from Missouri. We definitely haven't had snow quite yet.
Okay.
No.
We haven't either in Colorado, although I think it's in the forecast for Sunday. Ooh. So it's coming.
Yeah.
How about Minnesota?
Not yet. Nope. When I was looking earlier this week, they said we were going to get 2.5 inches up here on Sunday. And I was like, ooh, but I don't know. I feel like the weather app on my iPhone is constantly, I don't know. I think maybe it thinks I live in, the Arctic Circle or something, because it's always wrong. So no snow, but it will be down to 30, 21 overnight. So it will be chilly, but no snow yet. We'll see.
We have 4 inches.
Oh, wow.
We got it last night.
Oh.
Overnight.
Trekking through the snow over there.
Yeah. My nose, you can't tell because I didn't wear makeup when I was out today getting tied up in the woods. But when I got home, my nose and all my cheeks were red. And I was like, oh, crap. Dylan's going to kill me if I show up like this. So got lots of makeup on. Otherwise, yeah.
All right. Yep. So, Sabrina, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you write? And we know now you are in Missouri with no snow, but what else? What else do we need to know about you?
Sure. So I'm a fantasy writer. Of course, it has to have romance in there, but I am a fantasy writer. I'll read contemporary, but I tried to write it once, and I'm a very boring contemporary writer. So here we are. My debut, Dirty Lying Fairies, is actually what I'm going to read out of later. Oh, gosh. I'm really bad with the cameras up this angle.
I love the cover.
So, I know. I'm in love with it. I'm glad they didn't ask me to make my own because that wouldn't have turned out all stick figures. And then this one, Dirty Lying Dragons, is book 2 in the series, and it just came out this summer. So I'm really excited about that so far.
All right.
Awesome.
Great. Well, shall we get to it? I think Michelle's going to read first. So I'm sorry. No, Sabrina's reading first, right?
Michelle's like, wait a minute. I volunteered.
Surprise! Sorry. I got that mixed up. So Sabrina's reading first and then so we will put you up there by yourself here in just a second. But are you starting at chapter 1 or is there any kind of setup that you need to do?
So there is a small setup. It's no secret from the blurb, so this isn't a spoiler, but for those of you joining who don't know anything about Dirty Lying Fairies, this is book 1 I'm going to read from. Thea, our main character, gets enthralled in a plot in which she is going to become this year's changeling, which for fairies, that would be a human turned into a changeling. We all play with it different ways, but that's what's going on here. So this is actually from chapter 5, because I thought we'd all like to see when a very well put together man realizes he messed up. Don't we always love
Okay.
that? That's a good.
Yes.
You messed up,
Yes.
buddy. So yes, this is from chapter 5. But with that little bit of setup, I think you have enough. Thea was not supposed to be the one chosen this year, so accidents happened. So I
All
think
right.
that's enough.
Fun.
Sounds good. Well, we will rejoin you after.
Okay. I'm very ready for it. All right, let me start here. And this is from chapter 5, not too awful deep in. And it is from the point of view of our male main character, Devin. Sometimes I regretted having a damn doorbell. You would think, being a lord of one of the 4 Fey courts, I could command those under me to leave me alone, but there was always something that needed my attention, an endless stream of responsibility. It had been a long weekend, dealing with humans, arguing with the other court leaders over petty squabbles, beginning the changeling's transformation, though that had been quite a pleasant surprise this year. And now, just when I had gotten home, whoever was outside had better have something important to say, or I would be filleting a fairy. Passing by the hallway mirror, I checked my appearance. My glamour was firmly in place. As usual, I looked impeccably human as the doorbell rang again. I'm coming, I continued down the hall, and yanked open the door to see one of my winter court fays standing there with a chip on her shoulder. What? Were you asleep? Heather's expression had gone from visibly upset to surprised. I was trying to, seeing as how I hadn't slept since before the party. What is it? Pick a different one, Heather snapped. The previous upset was on her face once more. She flipped her long black hair over her shoulder and stood straight, nearly matching my height with her shoulders squared and her fury on full display. Pick a different what? I crossed my arms and leaned against the frame. You have 1 minute to get to the point. A different changeling, she said. That's not possible. The change has been initiated. She's one of my best customers and she's my friend. She absolutely does not deserve this. Heather shook her head. She shouldn't even have been a candidate. Pick a different one. You know it doesn't work that way. Goodbye, Heather. I tried to close the door, but she stuck her arm in at the last second. Her hands became claws. Your glamour is slipping, I said. There has to be another way, she demanded. You know there isn't. Don't be stupid. It isn't becoming of our kind. At least tell me why, her voice cracked. An ache was already starting in my temples. There would always be a soft spot for Heather as one of my more unfortunate changelings. Come inside. We entered the sitting room, where I sank onto one of the matching black sofas, tossing a lazy gesture for Heather to take the opposite one if she wished to sit. What is this really about, Heather? Is her situation bringing back bad memories for you? The anxious Fay remained standing, fidgeting with the zipper on her jacket. No, it's not that. That Thea shouldn't be a candidate in the first place. Who nominated her? Lady Georgina's summer court pain in my ass found this one. When I agreed to turn the yearly changeling, she was the one who insisted we take turns locating candidates. Recalling the report, I ticked the list off on my fingers. No family, almost no friends, no strong connections to humanity that can't easily be erased. And compatible traits with the summer court, reckless, impulsive, emotional. They haven't had one in a while, so the changeling was accepted. That's not Thea at all. She narrowed her eyes. Wait, was Thea the only human there? Of course I said, remembering the obnoxious one who interrupted us. No. Who else? Heather demanded, and I turned a stony expression her way, ice creeping across the floor from my feet even as the air took on a biting cold. The overhead light flickered. You will contain yourself before the Lord of the Winter Court. Heather closed her eyes, reining in her outburst. You're right. I'm upset. I know, I offered more gently. Let me think about last night. The icy hold in my sitting room dissipated. Thea had been all I could see last night. Her affinity was palpable. There was no denying she would have a strong change. But Heather was correct in that there had been another human there. A petite blonde was with her. She had some affinity as well, I suppose, though not nearly as strong. Short, tan, probably a pink manicure. Heather clenched her fists. Yes, yes, and I don't know, I grumbled. Candace, she hissed, standing up. You got the wrong girl. Stand down, I growled, a dangerous glint taking over my expression. Heather flinched. Heather fell back onto the couch, palms landing on her knees and her knuckles white. Thea, she whispered. I felt a small ripple of guilt at Heather's pain, but there wasn't anything I could do about it now. Due to the emotionally volatile nature of the Fae, it often felt like half my job was keeping them in check before someone lost control and made a mess that I had to clean up, or worse, broke the delicate glamour that shielded us from the humans. That would be a real pain to sort out. If it was a mistake, I will look into it, I said. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. What if her body rejects the change? It won't. How do you know? She asked. Because I sensed her from outside the building. It was overpowering. I barely noticed it on the other girl. I ran my fingers through my hair. She's a strong candidate as far as that's concerned. Heather shot me a determined look. Give me permission to tell her about the Fae. No. She may not have been our intended target, but the responsibility to nudge them in our world still falls to me. We won't tell her immediately. That would end poorly. If she dies because of this... The muscles in her jaw tightened, then relaxed as Heather got off the sofa and strode to the door. She looked at me over her shoulder as though she had more to say, but instead she bowed her head sharply as she shut the door behind her. I could hear her motorcycle rev to life a moment later as she sped away. A decanter of bourbon on the mantel began to look like a tempting dinner. I ignored it and waved away the frost creeping across the room's surfaces. I put on a pot of coffee before sitting down at my desk, opening my computer, and flicking through my emails until I came across Georgina's last message. Damn it. Thea was indeed the wrong human. My brow creased as I skimmed the report. This Candace Lewis was exactly our usual candidate. Her connection to the human world was weak, her one friendship with Thea being the last string that she would miss were she to be changed. Unfortunately, Candace wasn't the one who'd stood out last night. And hell did Thea stand out. I'd felt her potential before she even parked her van. She exhibited open fascination with Marcel's paintings, and the way she relished every bite on her plate made me remember a time when things could still be new and fascinating. And this wasn't even fairy food. I wondered what expression she would make if that crossed her lips. She breathed life and pleasure with her every movement, liveliness. Was that in the nature of the Fae from the summer court, or was that simply Thea? I sat back in my chair and frowned. This was a problem. We had nothing on this Thea. She hadn't even offered up her last name. We would have to do this the old-fashioned way. I got up and wandered back to the kitchen to see if the coffee was ready, absently swiping through my call history until I landed on Arthur, my right hand in the running of the winter court. He answered immediately. What's up, boss? I need you to look into something. I walked upstairs into my closet, sifting through my dress shirts. Sure, what do you need? I want a full background on the changeling. I pulled out a shirt and started matching ties. Didn't Georgina give you that, or do you need something more specific? Ignore Georgina's candidate. We found a natural changeling last night, and I need to know what I'm dealing with. Check the gallery footage for a Thea. I expect the report on my desk by morning. A pause at the other end. Of course, Lord Devon. I tossed my phone on the bed and finished dressing. The solstice was coming, and regardless of who the courts had voted on to become the next changeling, Thea would be the one to change this time. If this girl was as strong as I thought she was, I would need to prepare. We all would, because a natural changeling could become anything, and our courts would have to adjust. And that was from Chapter 5, from Devon's point of view of Dirty Lying Fairies.
Sorry, I had to unmute everybody. Take a second. That was great.
Awesome,
Thank you very
awesome.
much for reading.
So do you read fantasy as well, or do you read something else?
I'm a fantasy girly all the way through. I'll read anything really, but I very much mostly read fantasy romance.
So, what inspired this book?
A dare on the internet. So
Ah,
That's how a lot of books happen.
yeah.
Is a dare or a bet, isn't it?
I know. I don't normally write urban fantasy or even read that much of it, but one year I was doing NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, for those of you who don't know, and I didn't know what I was going to write. So on the forums, and I think this pops up like every year, but there was a thread, oh, if you don't know what to write, put what you usually write, and the person below you will give you, something different to write. And so when I received like paranormal romance, urban fantasy romance, I was like, oh, okay, let's see. But it worked out because I found out I really like that. I really, really like writing urban fantasy now.
You have a great voice for it. I mean, that was
Thank you.
great.
Yeah.
So what were you writing before then? The contemporary?
No, high fantasy and some sci-fi.
Oh,
Like if you asked me when I was a teenager what my favorite book was, I would have said The Hobbit.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe it still is. So
Not
my
much
editor
romance in The Hobbit.
on my prose
No.
all the time.
Yeah,
So-
I love a lot of those books, but yeah, I'm like, can't there just be more kissing?
mhm. Yes.
We need more kissing.
I know. We always like, I don't know. We need more kissing. There needs to be a love
Yeah.
interest. So I'm sorry, Dawn. What were you gonna say?
No, I mean, I was just gonna say, if you have any questions to the viewers, don't forget to pop them up here, in the comments for our authors. But then I was gonna say, like, I believe, like, I realized that I actually like to read romance, after I read my first romance, and then I went back to just like general fiction, and I thought, well, when are they gonna kiss? When are they gonna get together? And then I thought, oh crap, like I actually like romance. I don't like just, I mean, I do like it, but I prefer the love interest, I
Mhm.
prefer that to be the backbone of it all.
Yep.
So
So another question that we get a lot on this show, and I'm curious, depending on, what genre or subgenre of romance people are writing, is are you a plotter or a pantser? Because when you are, talking more fantasy and world building and everything like that, I'm always curious, how much of that do you do ahead of time?
Yeah, so I really think I lean more plotter. I think plotter and pantser is a sliding scale more than it is
Mhm.
an on-off switch, but I would say I'm on the plotter end
Okay.
for sure.
So how long does it take you to get ready to write a book? Or
So maybe as little as a day. I like to do something called taking my story on a first date, where I go maybe to a coffee shop or a library or something. You have to have like a warm beverage with you, but I get a notebook and I start the whole getting to know you, asking questions like you would on a first date. Like, I don't know anything about this character. I don't know anything about this plot. What do I really want? So I just kind of just fill a notebook or several pages out of a notebook, and I just write down every question that comes to mind and every answer to the questions that came to mind. So and then try to make sense of it at the end,
Mhm.
because
I
it's
love
really
that.
rambly at the beginning of that process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to knock out at least the bones in one sitting.
I love that, taking your story on a date. I've never heard
Yeah.
anybody explain it like that. I mean, I've heard people talk about just starting to jot down ideas and answering questions and stuff like that. But I really like
Yeah.
the imagery that
Very
conjures up.
romancy. Yeah.
So, how
What
about you,
about you,
Michelle?
Michelle?
Oh, sorry.
I am
The same things.
I think I'm like a plantser. I do a lot of like I really like writing contemporary. I think the challenge of writing contemporary is not a lot like big. There's no like fairies. There's no big like life or death. I mean, sometimes, but it's smaller scale, but you have to make it a big story. So I usually start with the characters and do a deep dive on them and what makes them tick and what's wrong with them and how we can fix it. And um, I kind of know the sort of tent poles of the story, but I can only really plot like 3 chapters ahead, because beyond that, it kind of helps me to just be able to go wherever.
Gotcha. All right, we did have 2 questions pop up. We'll do Rose's real quick. She just wants to know, Sabrina, what are you working on right now?
Right now, I'm editing actually book 3, Dirty Lying Wolves, and
Oh.
I'm very bad at editing, so this is the hardest part for me. Like, bless my editor. As far as what I'm writing, I am working on a gargoyle story.
Is it a
And
dirty lying gargoyle?
no, it's not going to be in that. It's not
Oh,
going to be in
okay.
the series. No, it's just another one for funsies that I wanted to do. So
Gotcha.
I'm having a lot of fun with it, though. It's going to be hopefully a little bit lighter hearted, just a little bit, but still obviously fantasy. So
Yeah. Okay, one more question, and then I think we can get to Michelle. So, how many of you have written a book on a dare, and if so, how many? Raise your hand if
I
you've written a
never
book on
have.
a dare. Oh my gosh, you're the only
Me.
one.
oh no. I feel like I do this a
I've
lot.
dared myself.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if it counts
That
if
counts.
you've dared yourself, but
yeah. I don't think a dare. I've never.
or a
I'm
bet.
afraid this is something I do
Yeah.
a lot because I will talk to readers and I'll be like, what do you want to see next? And it might not be like an entire plot, but somebody might say like, oh, I want a story with this kind of creatures. And I'll be like, that sounds interesting. I've never done that before. I say that a lot. I've never done that before. And then I get in trouble because I have to write it. So
And that's awesome. But you know what? In your genre, like it's so fun to just like be able to make
yes.
up your world and just like disconnect. And you could use your creativity. So that's awesome that you can just do a random creature and there you go. You can do it. So I mean, in the historical world, you can't be like writing, I dare you to put a computer in a historical. I don't know how that would work. It'd be time
Well, then it
travel.
just becomes a time travel, Dawn,
Time
Yeah.
travel.
right?
Yeah. Jennifer has one, but let's hear from Michelle and then we'll save Jennifer's for later.
All right.
Okay.
Are you ready, Michelle?
Yes, I am. And I'm going to do a little setup because I'm not starting at chapter 1. It's actually chapter 19. It's sort of midway through the book. But the reason I picked it is because it has all the things. Like, I love holiday romance. I love writing it. I love reading it. And this scene, what I love about it is there's always some little tradition or some fun thing happening around the holidays that you can pluck for kind of emotional resonance in the story. And so that's at this point the hero and heroine are not quite as arguey as they were before at the
All right.
beginning.
Okay. We will leave you to it and we'll be back when you're done.
Okay. And I had to put on my reading glasses because, as one does. So later that week, Lauren placed the last box of string lights in the back of Ben's truck and stepped back to admire their handiwork. Is Brody planning on giving sunglasses to all the guests? Ben asked with a laugh. At this point, I'm expecting a call from the local utility company about draining the grid. They'd driven 100 miles southwest to a hardware store in a small mountain town that happened to have gotten a massive supply of string lights. Shush. Lauren playfully swatted Ben's arm. She knew he was joking, but she'd deal with the utility company even if he weren't. Nothing could burst her bubble of happiness at getting this task accomplished. She wasn't sure why the twinkle lights had taken on such a monumental meaning for her brother and his fiancée. Still, their lack seemed to represent everything Brody worried about regarding his potential for failure in his bid to become a better father and husband than their dad. She and Kayla had repeatedly assured him that simply trying to be a decent family man would be a huge accomplishment compared to their father, but nothing could convince him. Are twinkle lights the key to a happy marriage? Ben asked softly. She turned to find him staring at her with an intensity that stole her breath. because I would have raided Jim's stash back in the day if it meant an opportunity to change our ending. Lauren forced a light-hearted smile. I'm not sure there was any other way we could have ended. She sighed. We were so young. It felt like I'd loved you for 1,000 years, Ben told her. It still does sometimes. I remember everything. Lauren did too. She remembered the sweetness of his touch and how safe she felt with him. She also remembered how much it hurt when things ended and how she'd left town feeling like her heart would never recover. Maybe it hadn't healed. How else could she explain that she'd opened herself up to Ben again so quickly? He hadn't been part of her plan to return to her hometown. As much as she'd promised herself she would keep her walls high around her heart where Ben was concerned, he'd already infiltrated her defenses. She had no way to resist his kindness and how he made her believe in things she'd given up long ago. Hannah liked him, which counted for a lot in Lauren's world, practically everything, but she didn't know how to trust him again. She didn't trust herself either. She knew what happened when she loved someone. They left her or let her down because she was hard to manage and deal with for the long haul, just like her mother. Maybe she could take a page from her sister's book and try to get along, but could she manage it? Did she even want to? I can almost see the wheels turning in your mind. Ben shut the truck bed and leaned against it, pulling her between his legs and resting his hands on her hips. What if we don't overthink this right now? But I'm an overthinking expert. Lauren cringed even as she owned the words. Overthinking was just one of her many deficiencies, and Ben would realize that sooner than later, even if he'd allowed time and distance to soften his memory of her. What if instead of stewing over the past, we went ice skating? He asked. A laugh bubbled up in her throat. I'm not an easy woman to surprise, yet you continually manage it. She glanced around the half-empty parking lot of the hardware store. But we're in North Carolina, not Minnesota, in case you've forgotten. There's not exactly an abundance of ice skating rinks in the immediate area. He lifted his hands to cup her face between his palms, pressing a kiss to her lips so gently it made shivers erupt along her spine. How about you let me handle it? Can you do that, Lauren? Can you let go and give me control for one afternoon? She started to refuse out of habit and her sense of self-preservation. This man had no idea the control he had over her and how she was constantly losing hers when he was around. Besides, letting someone else take care of things was utterly foreign to her at this point. Lauren was used to dealing with every part of her life, and she liked it that way. If she didn't depend on people, she wouldn't be disappointed by them. But all that independence and self-reliance could be exhausting and gave her far too many reasons to worry and overthink things. It was easy to let anxiety rule the day in every area of her life. Was her daughter indeed on the right track, or was this trip to Magnolia a blessedly peaceful detour on the path of teenage rebellion? Would her brother be okay, or was his marriage as doomed as it appeared on the surface? Would she make it through the holiday season, emotionally unscathed from her father's subtle attacks? And could she trust the unexpected bond she felt with her sister? There was so much to worry about, so much she could not control no matter her best intentions. Would this be considered a date? Do you want it to be? Ben sounded shocked but didn't release her. She didn't want him to let go. She gave a non-committal shrug but couldn't help her smile. Sadly, it's proven that I am a sure thing where you're concerned. I don't need to be taken on a real date. What if I want to? He asked and kissed her. She felt their connection all the way to her toes, but they weren't in their hometown. There were no ghosts from the past or worries about the future right now. They were two people together a week before Christmas, not so young, but oh no, she wouldn't let herself go there. She would go ice skating. She pulled away enough to speak against his mouth. I'd like to go on a date with you, she said. Ice skating or otherwise. Definitely ice skating and otherwise, he told her. I'm going to make giving up control worth your while. You already have, she wanted to tell him. They climbed back in the truck and he punched something into the GPS, then headed out of the hardware store's parking lot. I love the beach, but I love the forest around here too. She gazed out the window. I hope you'll save some trees when you do the development. I hate those subdivisions that are just white bare at the start. The trees around Camp Blossom are special, you know? It wasn't easy for her to talk rationally about the planned demolition of the camp, but she would try. There was no use pretending she could stop it, even though she secretly wished Ben would pull out of the partnership with her dad. It wasn't fair. After talking to Jim about his situation in more detail, she understood how much Ben had done to pull the man they both loved from the brink of irreparable financial ruin. It was still difficult to believe her dad wouldn't find a way to take advantage of that and dupe both Ben and Jim in the process. We're going to keep as many trees as possible, he assured her, and plant new ones. I'm also planning to use some of the lumber we salvage in a community clubhouse. Good, she murmured, even though her heart ached, knowing things would never be the same. I trust you, Ben. She had to, because the alternative would drive her mad with worry. That means a lot, he answered, and the rough timbre of his voice washed over her senses. She should tell him he'd changed her mind. They should return to Magnolia immediately. Hell, she'd been a fool to agree to undertake this errand with him in the first place. But then he was turning into the half-empty parking lot of a nondescript steel building with a strange amount of inflatables and other holiday decorations adorning the front walk. In some ways, it reminded her of camp. The building wouldn't stand out normally, but dressed up for the season, it felt charming. What is this place? It's a local skating rink, he nodded as if confirming for himself. I checked the town's website. Each Christmas, they have open skating sessions where they turn the rink into a winter wonderland. A winter wonderland, huh? She grinned as happiness spiraled through her. You put some thought into this, Ben. I'm impressed. He looked slightly embarrassed by the compliment. Well, it's not like I rented out the whole place, although I considered it. They have pee-wee hockey practice on the schedule today, so it wasn't an option. Her grin widened as she hopped out of the truck and took his hand. Thank you, she said, hoping he understood how much his thoughtfulness meant to her. He lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. I know how hard you've been working to make the camp carnival memorable, especially for Jim. So many of his years at camp were spent with Nancy, and now I have new, happy memories to take with him. It's not a big deal, she said automatically. If she acknowledged precisely how much the event had come to mean to her, it would involve admitting she'd opened her heart again to both her hometown and Ben. But you deserve something special in return for all you've done, and I happen to know you have a soft spot for ice skating. You do? She asked. I'm not sure I even knew that. He didn't seem fazed by her confusion. I remember how much you loved the scene in Elf where Buddy and Jovi skated at Rockefeller Center on their first date. You and I were going to visit New York during the holidays for our first Christmas together as a married couple. The memory tugged wistfully at her heart. That was my plan, she acknowledged, but a lot of things didn't work out the way I thought.
Wow, that is packed with a lot of emotion.
A lot of emotion.
Yes.
That's why I love second chance. I know Deanna was like, ooh, second chance romance. But I feel like with second chance romance, I mean, you get, because it's all there and then you just bring it out. Whereas, you know, when it's a couple that, you know, they are meeting for the first time or they're falling for the first time. I mean, that's fun too, but you just don't have that, the layers and layers. All the memories.
It's probably the trope I come back to the most because of that, because I think you can dive so deep when you've got that backstory.
Yep.
So what you just said actually is one of the questions I had. My question spins off from that. So how do you decide, and this is for both of you, how do you decide the tropes that you write for your books?
I'm super bad at deciding tropes other than second chance. That's sort of my go-to. But again, I start with the characters, and typically I start with a heroine, and then I think, okay, who can I put her with that's like the best and worst person she could possibly be with? And then, you know, as I craft the story around that, it's like, okay, should he be a single dad? Should they be friends? Is it work? Is it, you know, what kind of would add to it? So that's how it is for me.
So you kind of start with your characters and then lead into the rest of the, like,
yes,
the
and then I craft
and
then the plot, and yes, all those things.
What about you, Sabrina?
Well, I guess it depends. Like the Dirty Lying Fairies, that series is a fated mate series, so I go into each book knowing that that's going to happen. But sometimes things happen accidentally along the way. Like I said, that sliding scale for pantsing and plotting. So like I'll get halfway through my book and I'll stop and I'll be like 10,000 words ago, 10,000 words ago. Did I just do a one bed? I guess so. And then that's in there, so like I don't notice right away.
Yeah.
Some of them are accidental and some of them are not, I guess. Oops.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just writing down times somebody. Okay. Sorry, we have a couple questions. I'm just making sure I don't forget any of the questions. So,
All right.
Jennifer does have one. Is there anything you won't write?
It's a tricky
Michelle.
question.
Yeah, Michelle, you can go first.
It is a tricky question. I don't think there's anything I wouldn't write if I had a fabulous idea of it. Although historical, that's sort of my reading candy. It's what I love to read. But when I started writing, the research of the time periods and the costumes was so overwhelming that I felt like I couldn't do it. But I
What
think if I had, go ahead.
sorry, what era were you writing in? What were you writing in?
I was reading a lot of like sort of the Regency to Victorian era.
Yeah.
At like Lisa Clay Pass was my,
Love
initial
her.
like love, and I think one of the Bridgertons was like the first romance I ever read. So I love historical romance.
And what about you, Sabrina?
Well, you can probably guess I like to attempt things I've never tried before, but two things come to mind. One is third act breakups, which is a little bit more specific, but I probably just won't. I don't enjoy them. That's fine for other people, but I don't like it enough that I probably wouldn't write one. I would be annoyed with myself. And then this is gonna be really specific. The word abs. I won't write that about the male main character. I'll talk about biceps or pecs or something like that, but I can't because I know very well an actor on a screen what they have to do, like they have to dehydrate themselves and stuff to get those. So I was like, I don't want to write the phrase like cut abs or which is a really dumb thing. Like that question was probably supposed to be a lot broader than that, but here I am like no abs.
That's all right.
What's that?
We like genuine, authentic answers. So we will, we will take your abs and
I like to write abs, though. I'm the opposite. I love imagining running my fingers down them. I just say it.
Oh, I like them. I don't know. It just I annoy myself with that word. I won't. I don't know.
That's funny. I bet we all have a word that we just won't write. We'll figure out some other
moist. I won't write moist.
We can't say them all on this show. So I have a question though, because it seems like over the past, month or so, as I've been, looking in Facebook reader groups and things like that, I mean, the third act breakup has become like this polarizing force in romance novels. And I mean, I think so many of the, of the books that we read on craft and structure and things like that, there's got to be, whether you're following, a typical kind of romance story structure, or you're following hero's journey, or, I mean, there's always like some dark night of the soul or the breakup or something. So if you're not doing a third act breakup in a romance, what are you doing? Are you, is it external forces that kind of, they have to fight together, or because there's got to be something. I mean, the whole book is building towards some sort of climax. So what do you have as your...
So on my end, it's always going to be a lot more plot driven of outside of the romance. Whatever the Dark Night of the Soul is, it's probably more likely to be a battle or some big reveal or maybe kidnap somebody. I do that a lot. I don't know why. I just do.
It's a great go-to.
I was just curious. For those of you watching, I would love to know, do you love your third act breakups or do you hate them? Because
It's a
it
big
seems
deal
like
right now. It is a big
yeah,
big
it's a big topic of
conversation.
conversation. It is.
Mhm.
Yeah. So just curious.
We do have one question here. What book was the reading from, Michelle, and what are you working on now?
It was from, see, I'm terrible at doing this, The Christmas Cabin, which released on Tuesday, 2 days ago. And I am actually for the first time in a really long time, I am only under contract for one book that's not due for a while. And so I got to be honest, I got a little burned out because I was on this sort of heavy rotation deadline schedule. And so I've written a couple proposals that I have out that and I'm kind of just trying to decide what to write next, what sort of feels fun again, because that was important to me to get back to that.
Yes. Okay, so last question. Is it easy to write a series or a standalone?
To me, I really like to write. I mean, I think my sweet spot is like a trilogy. They're usually all standalones, but I like to write kind of a connected world because I just think that's fun and the investment I want to put into building a world. But when you have like a really long running series and details are not your strong suit, then it eventually becomes kind of like, oh my God, how old are they? When were they pregnant? So then it's like, oh, I got to go someplace else. So that's a little bit of both, I think.
Yeah, some of those long running series, I wonder how people keep track of all of those details. And that's my greatest fear is that, I will publish a book and then a reader will come back and be like, why did the baby's name change? And now she, it's like, I thought it was a girl, but now you said that, he had a son or whatever. And I'm just like, because when you get several books in, it's tricky. Especially if you're doing the timeline thing, and it's like, okay, and then they were 30 in this book, and now they're 34 here, but his birthday, I mean, you have to actually think about, like, their wedding dates, and, when they're celebrating an anniversary, and, I mean, just all the things.
A lot
So,
of things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
What about you, Sabrina? Do you like a series or standalone?
I think I like a series because I've tried to write and I've successfully written standalones, but more often than not, it's, oh, I'll fit this in one book, and then you get 150,000 words in, and you're like, all right, we're gonna wrap this up, and it's gonna be 2 books. It's gonna be 2, and then it's like, oh, it's gonna be 3 books, and I do that a lot. So I guess it's easier for me to write a series than a standalone.
Well, and I think when you're investing that much time and energy into building this world, it's like, I kind of want to stick around and play there for a little while.
Yeah.
Especially if it's, something you're enjoying and stuff. And I don't know. I mean, as a reader, I feel that way too. It's like if it's a place that you're enjoying spending time, you don't want it to be over after one book. So,
yeah, that's true. And I have one more question, and then I guess we can wrap it up for tonight. But for both of you, and maybe even Dylan, what is your least favorite part of writing, and what is your most favorite part of writing?
Ooh.
Michelle, you want to go first?
Yes. My least favorite part of writing is probably the middle. Writing the middle, because I feel like I have so much, I'm so excited to start the book, and then I always know how a book is going to end, so I'm so excited to get to the end. But then sometimes in the middle, that's where like the characters will give me trouble, or I'll like come up against a wall that I wrote myself into. But I would also say when I'm writing, then I think writing is the hardest. And when I'm editing, I think editing is the hardest. So
It's
it's
true.
really whatever I'm doing is clearly the hardest. And, you know, I think the best thing about it is that, you know, we get to make up stories, and that is like such a super fun way to spend your day, even on the most frustrating days. And then, you know, I love the author reader community. I think it's just such a nice place to hang out and be. So those are my two favorite parts of it.
Awesome. And what about you, Sabrina?
Well, my favorite part is the first draft. I really like drafting. It's what comes easier to me too, maybe as well, because I prep, with some of that, take your story on a first date, and so I have a lot of my questions asked and answered. So I really like doing that, and it's fun because I'll go through and I'll write a part, and I'll rub my hands like a cartoon villain, saying, "Yes, Tia's gonna like that," because you get familiar with some of your big readers or your friends who read for you, and you're like, "Yes." I think the hardest thing for me is literally everything after the first draft. So to pinpoint it, content editing is not my strong suit, and because I slam myself against that so hard, it's probably like my least favorite. So I know I have potholes. Don't tell me about them right now.
I'm just gonna say ditto to Sabrina. I mean, my favorite part, what I like most, is just that discovery. When you're getting into a story and when your characters surprise you and it's something you didn't see coming, and it just makes the story that much better. And I love those moments when you think like, whoa, didn't see that coming. And I mean, I know we've talked about that before on here, Dawn, but it's my husband will say, "How was writing today?" And I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, it was so great." Like a new character showed up, and I didn't even know who he was. And my husband just does not, he's just like, I mean, you do realize you are in control here, right? And it's like, no, you're not. I mean, sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
my husband said that. I said at one point, I said, "Oh my gosh, you won't believe what Flynn did today." And he's like, "You mean what you made Flynn do?" And I'm like, "No, he did it on his own."
Right. I'm just recording. Yes, I'm just recording these images that play through my head. So I think that's what I love the most, because I'm like you, Michelle. I'm more of a, on that scale of plotting and pantser. I like my tent poles, but then I do like to, just figure out, okay, I know where we started and where we're going, but how are we going to get there? That's what's fun for me. So I do like the drafting, because then that's where you get the most surprises. And I mean, I do not enjoy editing. I know some people say that's their favorite part, where they can go back in and layer things in. I'm like, if I could write one draft of a book and be done and just do it right and perfect the first time, that would be my dream. I do not like to go back. I like to do it, and I like to be done, and I want it to be perfect the first time, so that I don't have to go back and wade through, all the stuff. But
yeah.
How about you, Dawn? You have to answer the question now too, because you made the answer.
I mean, it's the same as you. I like the discovery. I like the beginning. I love coming up with the ideas, and then I love my historicals when I get an idea sparks from some random fact that is just so out there that you're like, how could this be true? But it is. And so it sparks a whole book. And I absolutely hate editing. I hate it with a passion. I'm horrible at it. And I have to I'm not gonna lie, I use Pro Writing Aid to help me edit, and then I send it to my editor, and then she goes through it, and then I gotta go through it again, and then I gotta go through, it's just like, I don't know. I hate it. Hate it. But well, we are out of time.
We are. Yeah, we are coming right up against an hour. So thank you both for being with us. I do want to remind everybody that we have some great giveaways on the Romance Happy Hour Facebook page this week. We've got Michelle is giving away all 6 books in the series that you read from tonight, including the brand new one that just came out on Tuesday. And then Sabrina, you've got a paperback and a hardcover that you're giving away of the fairies and then the dragons, right?
Dragons,
So,
yes.
Yep. So they both have some awesome giveaways. If you want to go check that out, make sure you get signed up for those. And Dawn, oh my gosh, the next time we are on here, it's going to be November.
Yes.
So,
And we've got two episodes left of the year.
2 shows for the rest of the year because we
shows.
only do one in November and one in December. So I know, how did that happen?
Oh,
But-
I don't know. I mean, this year is like, oh my gosh, it's already October. Like, oh,
Yep.
oh, it's already almost November. Yeah, this year went by very fast.
It has gone by quickly. So
Speaking of going by fast, there's only 2 days left to order your book box and your t-shirts, correct?
that's right. Yep.
Yes.
And this month we have the Chasing Holiday Tale, the romance anthology. We had a couple of the authors from that group co-authors because I have a story in there too, but they were on last time. And so it is we've got the 28th is when you can get your book box with the paperback for that. And then the anthology itself comes down on November 1st because it's only for a limited time. So
Nice.
So thanks for the reminder on that. Michelle and Sabrina, just real quick before we sign off, where is the best place for readers to find you?
My website, I do a monthly newsletter with giveaways, or if there's a new release, and you can sign up at michellemajor.com, or I'm at on Facebook at Michelle Major Books and Instagram, Michelle Major Author.
Great.
Awesome.
And how about you, Sabrina?
Yeah, so my website, sabrinablackburry.com, I've got a little bit of a blog. I try to update what I'm doing every month, as well as dates of like if I'm going to an event or something. So that's a good place for what I'm doing and where you can find me. Other than that, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the fun normal ones that all the book community gathers at. So
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well,
Awesome.
thanks again, both of you, for being with us. Dawn, do you have any parting comments?
No.
Okay. Stay warm out there, girlfriend.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, and we will see you. We'll see you next month. So
Yes.
thanks for being with us. We will we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.